2 years ago, a cat came to us out of the blue. The cat was to become the first manifestation of a dream Marion and I had shared for our future. A timid cat that entered our lives of his own free will, and by joining us, he fulfilled a part of that dream that we had had. And his arrival gave us hope that our big ideas could become a reality. A male cat named Poppy. You would be forgiven for thinking it is a strange choice of name for a boy. It is. Yet there is a story to this too. I found this stone last year, buried beneath the earth in the garden. I created a small table next to the garden bench, a summer seat for Poppy, or a place to put our tea. Although he joined our small team, the two of us making us three, he didn't really contribute to the renovation work. But it is difficult to help out when you don't have opposable thumbs. But even so, he played his part through mouse patrol and perhaps more importantly, moral support. His arrival in our lives marked a turning point. We were living in a camper van, having left our old lives that had been turned upside down. We were dreaming of a brighter future, a house, a project to build together, and a cat to share our new life. And it was with his arrival that our lives turned a corner. After 2 brief years, we had achieved those initial dreams. We bought the house we sought after and started the project to turn this old place into a home. But now, unbelievably, I find myself making a memorial to our little friend, a literal memorial stone to mark where he will sleep forever. And this video too, a memorial to the remarkable story of our beloved cat, a story of his unexpected arrival and a testament to the short time he filled our lives with love and hope when we needed it most. Like most things in Poppy's story, the stone came to us effortlessly. There was no searching for the stone, no deliberation. I knew it was the stone to use. It needs no shaping, no smoothing. I want to make a marker that is natural, homemade, imperfect and rough. Something that is personal, something that lasts but also changes with time. A memorial that fades but never disappears, like grief. So as I make a marker for where he rests, I'd like to share with you his little history and how he became a boy cat named Poppy. I have no desire to drench you with grief or sadness. Poppy's story is ultimately a story of positivity, hope, and life's serendipity. But grief cannot be avoided, in part because he has gone, but also in part because, for me, it is where Poppy's story begins. The rough surface of the stone makes it quite hard to carve. I had initially thought of sanding the surface down with carbide paper, but I don't think I could have got a uniformly flat surface with the tools I have. So I decided it will be as it will be, however amateur it looks. Sometimes you just have to make the best out of what you have to achieve what you desire. Marion and I were living in the Savoir region of France, in the mountains. I had recently lost my mother to Alzheimer's disease, and following a tortuous few years, I was negotiating a future for myself as I embraced a new dawn after the long night that follows the passing of a loved one. We were tentatively dreaming of buying an old barn in the mountains to renovate, but prices were high and our jobs could not secure us the credit we would need. The global pandemic then arrived, lockdowns, and ultimately my work dried up. Over this strange period, we decided to throw caution to the wind and leave the area. And when life restarted, we headed north, to be closer to our families, Marion's in Normandy and mine across the Channel in the UK. Houses in northern France were also considerably cheaper. We would find jobs and buy somewhere to renovate. So we put our belongings in storage and set out in the camper van. Even before we had started building our dreams together, Marion had shared with me how she would one day have a cat named Poppy. Then of course this was folded into our shared idea of our future. We would one day have a cat named Poppy. But don't get me wrong, it was not a name to be given to just any cat, male or female. It would have to be a female cat because Poppy is a girl's name. I couldn't let a male cat be called Poppy. His cat friends would surely tease him, as would I. Eventually, we found a long-term camping pitch. It was within a large campsite that was all but closed for the winter. It was renting out a handful of pitches for camper vans. For us, it was perfect. It had a private toilet and shower cabin, electrical hookup, picnic table, and a price that reflected that all the other amenities of this rather luxurious campsite were closed, save for the reception. We arrived, set up the van and the large awning tent and made us a comfortable little home. At least his name is not too long or complicated. My mum used to have a dog who developed the name Ernest Bogwattle III. That would have been an effort to carve into stone. There are parts that the bit passes through effortlessly, whilst other areas it must work harder. The tungsten bits seem to last quite well. I just have the usual problem of my glasses fogging up above the mask. With our camp set up, we quickly developed a routine. Marion was working on her PhD, and I was finishing off a novel I'd been writing for years. We were also looking for jobs, a rental property, and dreamily window shopping for a house to buy. Beyond that, our routine was a daily wintry walk and the normal details of everyday living, just in the minutiae, with us living in a small van. But then, a storm arrived. It's nice to work with stone, especially slate. I grew up in the Lake District, and the place is littered with beautiful slate. The houses are made from such beautiful, characterful stone. And now we have our own stone house. A challenge to renovate such a property. But its beauty deserves it. We could both see that when we first saw this place. It was October 2021. The van was rocked by the wind and the rain was heavy. The awning was struggling to stand in the wind. It was whilst tying down the awning tent that I heard his little meows from under the van. I offered him some food, which he was glad to have, and soon enough he came inside to seek shelter. I like to create things when I'm sad. I have a tendency to confront my emotions through doing this. I didn't know if I could share his story on YouTube. But then he has been a small part of our videos, even though he is a little camera shy. When my mother passed, I wrote a novel. I delved into our shared stories and my childhood. It took me many years, but it helped me enormously. So I decided to create a video for Poppy, because many people have commented on him and he could not just slink off into the unending night without it being recognised as part of our story, part of our channel. I really enjoy working on this stone. Have I said that already? I think I recall we had possibly seen Poppy when we had first arrived at the campsite. There was a small bowl of cat nibbles by the reception door, and he had been there. There were few other people on the very large campsite. We had a solitary neighbour, a young woman in a caravan. Following that first encounter in the storm, Poppy became our good friend. He would sit with us for hours. He would sleep on the bed. He would go out to hunt and return in the early hours, meowing at the van door. Perhaps he was a local cat. Perhaps he was just a chancer out for what he could get. We asked our solitary neighbour about him. She said there were a couple of cats around the campsite, and he had been the only one that would not come to her when she beckoned him. We asked at the reception too, and they told us he was most likely abandoned. He had arrived in the campsite the previous summer. Tragically, he had been found trapped in a rabbit hole. The workers at the site had rescued him, and following the incident, he refused to eat for quite some time. So they developed the routine of leaving a bowl of food at the reception entrance for him. The poppy flower is a hard thing to add. I'm pleased with my drawing, but translating it onto stone is quite a challenge. I won't cut the flower as deep as the lettering. It will become unnoticeable quite quickly, I believe. The girls at the reception had told us that Poppy was unapproachable. They had left the food for him at the door, which after time he did try, but he would let no one touch him. So they were surprised to hear how he was affectionate with us and how he slept in our van. This became a challenging moment in our relationship with the little cat. We were both falling for him, but we refused to name him, even temporarily, as we knew this would mean a sad departure when we left him at the campsite. The poppy flower became a bit of a challenge. I decided to keep at it, even if it risked making a mess of the whole stone. Luckily, it is subtle once the engraving is washed a little. For a couple of months, the little cat joined in our routine. We bought him food, he rested with us, and when we went out running errands or on our daily walk, he would be waiting for us, hiding somewhere near the van. I remember he was often there in the night too. I would go to the toilet cabin and he would be dancing around in the night with his tail held high. Then we found a rental property some 60 miles away from the campsite. After much deliberation and discussion, we decided to ask the campsite if we could adopt the cat. The receptionists said they would ask the campsite owner, but the owner was well aware of the little cat and wanted the best for him. The reception staff could see that we had teamed up well with the little cat, and so we believe they put in a good word for us, as the following day we were told yes, we could take him. But it was not set in stone, not yet. We would need to have him checked for a microchip to see if he already had owners. So we still did not want to name him. We both knew that the cat's name should be Poppy. But there was a problem. One that bothered me, as I thought it may disappoint Marion, as it would mean I would object to naming the cat Poppy. You see, everyone referred to the cat as a girl, but I was not so sure. In fact, I was quite convinced I had seen evidence that he was a boy. A castrated boy, but still a boy. It seemed that everyone who met him agreed he was female, but I was sure he was a boy. I would like the stone to be bright when it's installed, so I will add a little colour, but it won't last. It should fade. It was January the 14th, 2021, when we took him to the vet to get him a checkup and microchipped. Unaware of his date of birth, it was estimated he was perhaps a year old, and we put the day's date on the paperwork as his birthday. We also sheepishly asked the vet to confirm his sex. Remarkably, the vet told us she was a female, and he advised we spayed her so as to not have babies. I was taken back. I had made a mistake. We booked her in to be neutered and left the surgery gleeful that Poppy was ours and had, eventually, officially taken the name Poppy. I had no shame in getting her sex wrong. I'm happy to admit my mistakes. It is an important tool for life, I find. But I still found it hard to believe. But who was I to contradict a professional? So I closed my mouth and accepted the truth. Another important life skill.
Tu fais tout doucement. Tout doucement. Tout doucement. Doucement.
I had, for as long as we had known Poppy, which was about 10 weeks, called him a he. It was hard to change my ways, and Marion was forever picking me up on my misgendering. We checked her into the vet's for the operation, which would occur the following morning, and left. The following day, we received a phone call. Our cat could come home, but there had been a small complication. They had sedated him, placed him on the operating table, shaved the area and made an incision. But the vet declared he was not a she. She was indeed a he. He was a boy cat named Poppy. We collected Poppy and briefly saw the vet, who was more than a little embarrassed at the error he had made, and rightly so. The rest is history, as they say. We bought our renovation property 10 months later, and the three of us have lived very happily here for 14 months. until a few days before his birthday, when he would have officially been ours for 2 years. He had gone out for the night, as was his routine, but he failed to come home the following morning. This was not highly unusual, but it was not usual either. The hours went by without Poppy arriving at the window. Then days went by, and our worry increased. We searched for him and called for him, but to no avail. We put up posters around the local area, and we dropped leaflets in letterboxes. And then, on the 4th day, the day before his birthday, we received a call from the neighbours. He had been found, deceased, in their garden. We went to collect him immediately. There were no signs of attack or struggle. He was lying on his side, somewhat peacefully, right there on a garden path, not 20 metres from our house. It was though he had been on his way home and just collapsed. A strange place for a timid little cat who liked to hide beneath the hedgerows. This gives me a little comfort that it will have been a quick departure, for I am sure if he had been suffering, he would have hid himself away. Beyond this, we have little explanation of what actually happened to him, and I guess we'll never know. But he will now be in safe hands. My mum will be there to welcome him, and our good friend, Sophie, too, will be there. The colour will wash away swiftly. The white, which is an acrylic, will stay a little longer before it too fades away, leaving only the letters and a subtle trace of the flower engraved in the stone. The stone I'm engraving shall mark where Poppy now rests. In the high garden above the house, near where the greenhouse once stood before it was destroyed by Storm Ciarán. Poppy used to follow us up into this garden, hiding under the hedge, then bounding through the grass to run ahead of us. We will rebuild the greenhouse this year. And Poppy will be just outside near the door, next to the bench where we sit and I drink tea. We buried Poppy wrapped in 2 warm blankets in a decorated box along with a couple of his favourite toys. We both wrote a few words and left the cards with him. We were truly shocked to have lost him so soon. And in some despicable way, it felt inevitable to me, as though we had loved him too dearly, or just the fact that such a beautiful little soul that meant so very much to us could never stay forever. But in grief, it's good to be mindful of your thoughts, be kind to yourself, and let those thoughts wash away. The little boy cat named Poppy left us the same way he found us, quietly on a miserable winter's night. One day we will all be reunited. But until then, we have a home to renovate.